Welcome, my friends, to the Game 2 recap show, our Bleepin City. I'm your host, Mikey Two Guns. So, Game 2, Celtics got blown out. No sugarcoating. It was pretty ugly. After the second half, it was tied. It was tied. The Celtics didn't look great in the first half, but it was still tied at halftime. And at halftime, everything just basically shit the bed. They looked lost. But let me start with the positives. The game started off pretty, promising. What I liked about the start of the game was Tatum was being very aggressive. We all know the struggles that he's had this postseason. But what I liked about the start of the game is that he, instead of just sitting back and forcing some threes or trying to create a three off the dribble, he was being very aggressive. He was going to the rim, and he was getting to the line. He had, I think the final numbers, the free throws, he had over 10. So I really liked the start of the game, the aggressiveness, the willingness to draw contact, to get fouls. It was working good. They had one of the Cavs' major players, Mobley, in serious foul trouble, which is great. I wish they could have capitalized on that more. One of the concerning things you could see right from the very start was, as much as I love Jaylen Brown, there's times when he doesn't make the correct read. And quite a few handful of times in this game, you would see him forcing the action. Wasn't kicking out. He wasn't trying to look for the open guy. He was trying to take. I like the aggressiveness, trying to take it to the rim. But unfortunately, in many of those instances, there was a player right there in front of the rim to pretty much, make it a difficult shot or make it a block. So that was a little bit of the taking a step back in this game. One thing that cannot be ignored, and it's kind of been something that's been looming and people don't always want to talk about because maybe on the whole, he's done a great job, is the coaching strategy of Joe Mazzulla. So I've heard from many different people their critiques, what they would do differently. One of the major issues that I have with his kind of his strategy, his game plan, is his use of timeouts. You look at a coach like Coach Spo on Miami. I think he is one of the masters at knowing when to break up the game, when to call a timeout, when to kind of try to stymie the other team's rhythm if they're getting in a rhythm. The thing I've seen with Coach Mazzulla, and it's no longer just kind of a trend, it's his style, is that he likes to play through everything. We saw it again in this game. Cavs would go on a run. They'd start to make a few shots. You could see it. They would get the confidence. They would then use that confidence on the defensive end. So that would snowball into more confidence on the offensive end. And it would continue for, a good 10-point string. What I wish Coach Mazzulla would do, and if you're listening, Coach, it's no shame to take my advice. I wish he would use those timeouts at any inkling of momentum or a run from the opponent, from the Cavs, from the Heat, whoever. He loves to play through it. I don't know if that's stubbornness, if that's laziness. I'm not sure, but I would love to see that fixed. The second critique that I have, or that many people have with Joe, is some of the baffling lineups that he puts in. And I'm all about trying new guys and using your bench because you definitely don't want to wear these guys out for the long haul. However, when you put in, let's say, Kornet, for example, who's been awesome this year, has been provided a great spark. But when you put in a guy like Kornet and, he's having a rough night, the Cavs are, taking advantage and exploiting those matchups with him, you got to realize that quick, and you got to make a substitution. You got to switch up the lineups, the defensive looks. That's one thing that I think he really needs to. I don't know if he needs to lean on his coaches for advice, or if he needs to just mix it up and notice that early and change it, because that's definitely has seemed to be a bit of an issue. The other major glaring issue problem that I've had with the Celtics this game and a lot of games is the reliance on the three-pointer. Look, I get it. The three it's today's NBA. It's part of the game today. Like, you need to shoot it fairly decently to win, and you have to have some, you got to have a few kind of assassins that can shoot it from the three-point line. That being said, there is nothing wrong with old school, take it to the rim, get an easy shot, especially when your shots are not falling, as the Celtics were. I mean, tonight, there was a stretch, I think, in the second half where they missed. It was around 13 to 15 straight three-pointers. It's times like that where, and I don't know if it's on the coach to point these things out to the guys, but you almost have to tell the team, look, guys, you're cold. You're cold. Your shots you're just, you're building a brick house in here. Take it to the rim. Draw contact. But when the shot's not falling, you got to find a way. Okay, you can't just keep shooting it and pray. You got to find a way. Do what Tatum did to start the game. Take it to the rim. Draw contact. Get the fouls. Get to the line. And he was getting those calls, and he was doing them in the first half. And then they forgot kind of what they were doing, and they just kept chucking up from the threes, and it seemed like no one could get hot. It brings me back to a conversation I had with Kip and Bryna Jones, daughter and son of the late, great Celtics coach of that 86, perhaps the best team of all time squad. And check the Twitter. They've got some great advice on what to do on games like this when you're not shooting well. And their whole philosophy, and I agree 100% with this, is, number one, control what you can control. One of those things is defense. So, if you gotta press them full court, if you gotta create those turnovers, if you gotta get a few extra possessions, to make up the deficit, do that, because you can control effort. The second is passing and taking it to the rim. Like Bryna says, you can't run as fast as a pass can be moved. And I totally agree. You gotta just take it to the rim, fast break it. You gotta try something different like that. And that's what the old school, successful teams of the Celtics did when the three-point shot wasn't even back then when teams weren't trying to guard against a three-point shot, when they're packing it in. You got to move. You got to be aggressive. You got to take it to the hole. Those are the glaring issues. On the bright side, we all saw what happened after Game 2, where you get on Celtics Twitter, you talk to any emotional fan that wears their emotion on their sleeves. I'm guilty of it too. Where after that game, the sky was falling. You had the Stephen A. Smiths, the Shaqs of the world saying, Celtics suck. They're not ready for prime time. They're going to choke it away. Of course, we're going to get all that. The other thing too, the trolls. Don't be baited by all the trolls, because that they've had these tweets all composed and set for days, weeks, months, and they're waiting for games like this just so they can press send. So let's not get triggered. Let's stay positive. We all saw what happened after game 2 of the Miami series. The Celtics absolutely locked it down, focused, and stomped the Heat. I don't see that any differently. One thing that is really puzzling to me is the struggles that the Celtics have had at TD Garden in front of some of, in my opinion, the best fans in the NBA. The best fans, the best home court advantage in the NBA. We're loud as hell. We know we're the most knowledgeable fans. We know what the fuck we're doing and we're talking about. And for some reason, and this is unlike all the other teams of the past, the 86 Celtics, the Birds, the Bill Russells, going back to the Pierce days, where they didn't lose games at home. It was very rare to lose games at home. And here, over the past, I think 30 games, or I think 500, 14-14 is, if I remember correctly. And that's weird. And we seem always, when we go on the road, to play loose, which we're going now. So, maybe that's a good thing. And the only thing I can really kind of break it down to is that it's mental. I mean, the game is so mental. And I mean, my feeling is that these guys are so invested and they care so much that when they do get in front of the home fans, they're either too amped or too jacked, or they want to play so well. They want so badly to do well for the home crowd that they tighten up a little bit. They get a little tight. And then when the shot starts to fall and the other team gets confidence, they hear the crowd groaning a little bit. It just snowballs that effect. So right now, I think going on the road is the best thing for this team. They won't have the pressure of the home crowd being the massive favorites, and for some reason, and we've seen that time and time again, whether it was winning Game 7 in Miami a couple of years ago, or winning elimination games in Philly the past year, or elimination games in Milwaukee. This team plays great on the road. So whatever it is, that's my best kind of explanation for it. Not sure. Hopefully they can fix it. But silver lining is we know what happened last series. We know what happens when they go on the road. So look for the Celtics to bounce back strong. They're going to stew over this game for a day while they travel on the plane, and look for them to come back strong.